What's happening, people? My name is Kovu and welcome back to CubCamTV. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different as we take a look at exactly what is going down in and around nightclubs around the country. Obviously, following on from some very disturbing news we've been hearing in the news recently in regards to the lack of funding for nightclubs and in regards to just the general state of the nightlife industry in this country. We've seen numerous different venues and platforms attempt to still somehow get punters through the door and somehow still showcase live music, be that rappers, be that DJs, be that musicians, be that anything in between. Think about it for a second, a life without live music. It just doesn't really feel right, does it, when you sit back and think about it? Me, as a music professional, someone who has spent their entire life working in and around electronic music, the idea of there being no nightclubs to go to, no venues to swerve into on a Friday or Saturday evening, it's absolutely catastrophic in my mind, which is why I felt the need to put together this little documentary about what is actually happening in nightclubs as we take a look at what socially distanced raving actually looks like. Having just finished playing, how was your experience of performing in that?
Well, performing, first and foremost, it's just lovely to be able to play music to people at that volume and just general kind of vibe, rather than it being in your bedroom. But yeah, you can't lie and say it's exactly the same because you don't have people stood up dancing, but it's still nice. You can still kind of gauge reactions and like you can see like the top half of people's bodies dancing. It's kind of like legless dancing almost, but yeah, it's wonderful. Again, it's been something which is like that you dream about for however many months we've been in this situation, and then yeah, like anything at this rate is yeah. Yeah, and it's wonderful as well. It's always going to be wonderful having music.
As someone who has quite an eclectic selection, how did you find essentially selecting for this evening, considering the unusual circumstances?
Yeah.
And to an extent, the kind of limitations.
Yeah, it's nice in a way because there isn't so much of the imperative to play like straight up bangers and just have people like dancing and nothing else, if you know what I mean. So like from that perspective it's kind of nice because you get to play some music which maybe you wouldn't have thought to play at first in that kind of setting at that time. But yeah, it's nice. It's like a couple of weeks before I played earlier in the day, so I kind of tailored it to be more like kind of lighter music and stuff, whereas although it sounds weird saying 7:30 is like a like time in the night, like 1 a.m. or something, it kind of like, it was nice to play that kind of music regardless. You've got wicked speakers in there, so it's not like you're just playing to sat down people playing like rinse out music with no bass or something like that. It's like you can feel the kicks and the bass, so it's like, yeah.
What's happening, people? It's Kovu here. Welcome to the documentary. I hope you enjoyed that first interview we put together down outside Patton's after a show had finished. So throughout the course of this documentary, I want to talk primarily about the process of putting it together just to kick it off. And I do want to say this is the final part of the documentary that I have actually filmed. Everything else has been done. Everything else has already been chopped together. This is the final part of the project. Before we get into everything then, I just want to say a massive thank you to each and every person who's got involved. It's taken me about a month in total to put all of these interviews together, some of which were conducted down at Trickstar Radio, so I want to send a massive shout out to all of the team there for allowing me to use the green room for a couple of the recorded interviews. The rest of the Skype and Zoom interviews have been recorded here in this room. This is the cave where the majority of the stuff I do is actually built. So yeah, I wanted to send a massive shout out to each and every person who has got involved with interviews, be them in person or via the internet, everyone who sent footage over as well, and of course each and every one of you for listening. I'm really hoping you do enjoy and take something away from this hour-long documentary looking at what socially distanced raving actually looks like. Throughout the course of the next hour or so, we are going to be looking at numerous different interviews and discussions, primarily looking at the different areas of the music industry that have been hit hardest by COVID, especially those in nightlife, especially those that require crowds in the venues. We're going to be talking to promoters, we're going to be talking to DJs, we're going to be talking to MCs, we're going to be talking to event organisers of all different types. It's going to be a fantastic hour of discussion, so I hope you do enjoy. KXVU out. What was your experience of it?
It's a very difficult question to answer because it was a very it was a strange experience because I was opening up the night, so it was empty for the first kind of hour or so, which is quite normal, I guess, for a club night. But then as people started to come in, it was a very enjoyable experience. You know, it was nice to. I think I texted you guys earlier on saying it feels nice to even just play loud music to an empty room and feel a venue warm up again. You know, I feel that's a very important part of a night is as the venue starts to get warm and stuff like that. So it's an interesting experience, but being inside there now, it's enjoyable. It's very nice to hear loud music in a venue again and people enjoying it and stuff like that. It's a positive experience, man, 100%.
So as someone who is from that mould, how has this kind of affected your opinions towards how nights are set up?
I think it's even more important now how nights are set up. Like, I think the beginning of a night is a very, very important time. It establishes what the rest of the night is going to be, and it's a time where people are just starting to get warmed up, and that's something that, you know, when everyone's just kind of sitting down in a socially distanced kind of environment, I think it's even more important because people aren't used to that kind of experience of coming into a venue and sitting down and having their drinks and not dancing. So I think it's even more important that you take them on that journey slowly and you kind of introduce that idea of, okay, we're going to be listening to dance music today. We're going to take it slow as everyone starts to have their drinks and stuff like that. It's going to get heavier and heavier as it goes. So I think it's more important than ever to make sure that you introduce people to the night early and you establish the vibe early on and you build up that energy as you go, and as people start to drink more and start to have a better time, you bring up the energy with them, and you don't like assault people early on with really aggressive kind of in your face music, because particularly when you're just sat down, that's too much. So I think it shines a light on the need to develop a night more than it ever would before.
I wasn't sure what to expect, really, because everyone's like sat down and stuff. I didn't know if people would be like into it and sort of like feeling it. But everyone was like, I think everyone kind of needs music at the moment. And everyone was like up for a good time, like chatting, having fun. Like when I dropped like a heavy tune, everyone was reacting, which I wasn't. I was like, should I go vibey or heavy? But it ended up being like a sick night, and I definitely want to do more for sure. Like, yeah. I think, I went down the more vibey route, and I thought I'd mainly stick to like vibey garage sort of stuff, especially as it's a UKG party. And then I thought I'd sprinkle in some of the heavy stuff just to catch people off guard. Like if they're sort of waiting a bit, just kind of, it is still a set sort of thing. So it wasn't as different to a normal set as I thought it would be. Like people were really up for hearing like the heavy stuff. Just obviously they were sat down was the difference. Like, yeah. I think obviously this is it's hard to like change because it's probably like in the law. But if it was a bit louder, then I think people would be like, instead of kind of sort of like the people at the back probably couldn't even hear it too much. It was a very like background sort of thing. Whereas if it was a bit louder, it would feel more like a set. And I think that's what people want, is they want to like there's no proper raves at the moment, so this is the next best thing. So they want it to be as close to a proper rave as possible. So that would be my only thing, but it's definitely a sick alternative whilst COVID's still rampant. And I think that, yeah, like DJs should definitely consider doing them. Like, because I was a bit skeptical. Like, should I? Because I'm the sort of DJ I love like a packed crowd, like everyone chants, like feed off that energy. And sometimes if the crowd's not giving me the energy back, I feel a bit of a lull. So I was like scared that would be the case. But it wasn't as much as I thought. Like the crowd were giving feedback and like feeling it. So it was a worry that I shouldn't have had, really.
So as we can see, the general consensus of what's been going down in these dances is nothing but positive from both DJs and event promoters. To me, it seems like more than anything, everyone involved is just happy to get some level of normality back. And we're not running with that term new normal, don't be silly. What we're going to do next then is jump into a couple of different interviews I've recorded over Zoom and via the internet in general with people who've been playing shows around the country, not just in Brighton, because I really want to get a wider look on what's actually going on here. The whole point of this documentary to me is to really get people to open up about their experiences in different types of socially distanced raves. Obviously, in different cities, people have different mentalities and people have different types of dances they enjoy. So, what we're going to do first is jump into a conversation with man like MPH about a dance he played in Sheffield not too long ago. Playing the show in Sheffield, it was a socially distanced night. Like, what was your initial thoughts coming off the back of it? Like, what was your reaction?
I thought it was nice to have some kind of normality. I think that was the first gig I had since March. It was a bit different to the usual sort of thing, but still, you'd get crowd reactions, you'd get interactions from the crowd, so it was still sick to even be able to play out.
Okay, cool. I mean, kind of with that then, like, leading up to it more than anything else, like, how did you kind of find the thought process in like preparing? Like, were you thinking, oh, I'm going to have to draw for these ones or these ones? Like, what was the process in preparing?
I think I was just going to wing the whole thing. Like, I was just going to read what people were saying, but it's difficult because obviously everyone sat down. But the act before me was playing like heavy drum and bass. So when I got there and I saw people like proper going for, that genre, I was like, all right, cool, I'm just gonna play whatever I want.
Amazing, man. So again with that, the whole kind of vibe of the thing, obviously a socially distanced dance, people aren't allowed to, like in most places, I'm finding people aren't allowed to stand up, like venues are being quite strict. Like what restrictions were in place specifically when you played?
So everyone had to be seated. And they had like a one-way system. Like, so there'd be a group of tables, one-way system, group of tables, and then the other part of that one-way system would go like around. And like everyone was just sat down for the most part. To be fair, towards the end, I think people just really wanted to like get out of their seats. There were a few people that stood up, but yeah, for the most part, it was just everyone was sat down.
Okay, I mean, when you're performing, then, because obviously in kind of bass music, in garage, in dance music in general, there's a certain level of reaction. You're like trying to get out of a crowd. You're trying to get the rewind. You're trying to get that almost like explosion when people land. How did you kind of find the reactions taking place? Like, did you find it a bit off-putting?
No, because like even with people sat down, like every tune or like every other tune I dropped, you would hear like, oh, like people would still just sort of go for it. It was just weird to see people just sort of sat down, but just sort of like moving their top half, if you know what I mean? But yeah, man, it's better than nothing. Like, I really enjoyed it.
Okay, interesting, man. It's interesting hearing so many different people's opinions on it. Obviously, with this mini documentary, we're trying to find out like how things are differentiating from venue to venue, and obviously try and get a real understanding of what's happening inside these kind of dances. With the show you played, what did you feel like the general vibe was inside the building? Did you notice people kind of were people happy? Were people excited? Like, what was the general vibe?
Yeah, everyone was just chill. I know like security was just hot on everyone's case, but for the most part everyone was just respecting the rules. I think when you went inside people had to wear masks, but still like literally everyone put masks on and it was fine. It was calm, like literally no drama at all.
So you found people were actually being quite respectful of the general sort of rules that are in place?
Yeah. And like from what I've seen, like working in hospitality, from what I've seen and the people I've served, that really surprised me because, across the board, not many people actually following the rules. But yeah, when it came to that event, yeah, man. And I'm guessing it's the same for a lot of events that are happening at the moment. People are just
definitely, man. I mean, from the people we've spoken to on this documentary, it seems like people are almost so desperate to kind of have these sat down dances, these releases of kind of the pent up rave energy, which has been there for sort of 6 months. It feels like people want to respect the rules as much as possible.
Yeah, definitely, man. Anything to get back to like a live show. That's it.
So, the more and more I ended up getting into this documentary, I thought, you know what, we're touching entirely on what's happening inside the raves, but I thought, what's happening outside the raves in regards to the producers and DJs who have been affected by this horrible situation we find ourselves in? Obviously, some people will be using this time to really push forward with their projects, but sometimes it just isn't that simple. Things get in the way, motivation isn't particularly high, and there's a lot of different factors involved in the process of making music to begin with. So I thought I'd ring up an old friend to see his opinions on things, and having been one of the most active DJs I've seen on my timeline for a long period of time over the course of the last 4 years, I thought it would be really interesting to ask him what he's been doing in the spare time, what other projects he's been working on, and of course how the socially distanced rave scenario has affected him personally. So we jumped onto a call with a man like SKEPSIS earlier today to find out exactly what's been going down for him. Right then, we're inside the building with SKEPSIS. Obviously, thank you for joining us on this as part of this documentary. It's good to have you on.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. We're inside, kind of. But we're separate. We're socially.
We're inside the screen.
We're both inside our own buildings.
There we go. Now, obviously, we caught up last year on the Breakfast Show, but what I want to kind of do with this, obviously, this is a bit of a documentary about how socially distanced raves are actually going down, and obviously with yourself playing one quite recently, I'd quite like to get a bit of perspective from yourself. Obviously someone who plays a lot of shows, someone who's very active in that sort of nightlife scene. How was your first experience of playing a socially distanced rave?
I mean, obviously with nothing coming in at the moment, I was happy to sort of take whatever. And it was in Bristol, it was at Lakota, and it was in the gardens of Lakota, and it was actually run by a good friend of mine, Eoin Fenton. So that was nice as well. I'd seen a couple go ahead before. For instance, I saw one in Brighton. Was it at Volks or something outside?
Yeah, there's been I think about 8 in Brighton so far.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So from my perspective, I think more than anything, I was just happy to be back, even if it wasn't an authentic energy type thing. You know, it was. And to be fair to Owen and Lakota, it is run very well. Like, the security is strict without sort of being overbearing. People are still having a good time, but they're sort of sat down. Obviously, they're not allowed. And I mean, even when we had our own table and, you know, as the night goes on, people get a bit more rowdy, but you get told to sit down, basically. It's like, it's quite, I'm not obviously sure on the strict, how much they enforce it at every venue. But if at Lakota, it's run very well. And I mean, even the music, it's like, it's not too quiet. Like if you have a good sound system, you know, I think 85 decibels is, or whatever it is, but it was okay. And I mean, not to mention it was my birthday weekend, so I was pretty drunk. I mean, in my head, it was probably better than, you know, and I got on the mic a few times. I was like, oh, it's so good to be back. Well,
I mean, with that, then obviously having spent the majority of the last sort of 3 to 4 years, I'd say for yourself, playing near enough every weekend, or let's say every 2 weeks minimum. Like, how did the sort of scenario of not being able to play any shows kind of affect you?
It was definitely hard. In a way, I mean, I obviously I tried to take the positives from everything, and I remember when I was touring and stuff, I was like, you know what, I would love a period where I could just be at home for a bit and just fully reset, because last year I had 3 weeks off, and it was nice, but for me, it just passed so quickly, and then I was back again. And obviously, not to be negative, but when you're touring all the time, like, my head's kind of all over the place. Like, I don't have like a home location, you know, because even when I am at home, my girlfriend lives in Nottingham, so I'm constantly traveling back and forth London to Nottingham, then doing the shows, and it was just like, there's not a week goes by where I'm not doing a long journey. So in a way, this period has kind of been a reset, and also time to make music as well, you know, because when you do tour, it's quite it's not good for the making music type thing. Obviously, I take my laptop, but my production setup is mostly on this Mac that I'm on now, so it's I've not got up-to-date stuff on my laptop. Yeah, so it was nice, and it was a bit frustrating at first. I think I've put a bit too much pressure on myself to, you know, oh, I've got free time, let's make a fucking album in a week type thing, like, and you know, at the time life was a bit scary, and we didn't know what was going on, you know. And I just remember seeing these photos of fucking like tanks coming down the motorway. They're coming to lock down London, like, you're not allowed to. And but and then I was getting frustrated. I think I just couldn't get motivated to do anything, you know, like it was a bit, and that was frustrating for me because I was like, fuck it. Oh, sorry, am I allowed to swear? No.
Yeah, you're allowed to swear, don't worry.
Like I've got all this time to produce and I just can't do anything. And I think that, but I went away and I came back, and as with like creativity, it comes in like ebbs and flows, and I'm feeling really inspired at the moment. I've been making a lot of music and stuff. So there's pros and cons, obviously. On the negative side, I mean, it would be sort of irrational to just say, oh, everything's great. But, you know, yeah. So next year, I'm not sure. I know a lot of festivals that I was playing this year have just been deferred to next summer. So I actually checked my diary, and if things go ahead, I've got a few bookings next summer,
nice.
Which is good, obviously. It's nice to have that safety, but obviously we could just not be allowed to do them.
Yeah,
and
entirely.
I mean, I've even seen like, you know, DJs, producers talking about, you know, illegal free parties and stuff, and like even Mike Skinner was joking about it, you know. So it's weird times, and end of the day we just have to play it by ear and keep an eye on the government, what they're saying and that.
When the sort of normality of dances eventually does resume in the venues that we do have available, do you think that's going to kind of jump straight back to the top of the sort of to-do list for yourself? Or do you think it'll be a case of over this time period, a lot of other avenues will end up opening up? Or do you think it will, as soon as the shows are back on, will that be straight back to the priority?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen artists like look at other avenues of income, you know, like Patreon type things where you subscribe monthly and get bits, you know, sample packs as well. But at the end of the day, none of these are really going to match up to the show income. It was probably about 90% of my income, you know, so that's a big knockout. And yeah, I think it's going to be hard to get back to that. And it's, you know, it's quite scary at times because we don't know when, but just kind of have to hope for the best at times like these. And one day we're going to look back on it, you know, and I'm sure we will be back. But it's weird because I look at the videos of the raves beforehand, the really busy ones, and I just think this concept looks so alien now, you know, the virus has completely changed your view of everything. I guess everyone's a lot more hygienic now, and but yeah, so it's hopefully we can return. I mean, I saw a video the other day of I think it was Australia. It was like 10,000 people crowd or something in Australia, like drum and bass DJ. Yeah.
Yeah. So. I mean, you look around the world, there are places where shows are kind of resuming in a moderate level, even like football stadiums in Germany, I think are back to letting people in. A question I'm kind of asking everyone is like, if you could change one thing about the way the previous one was set up, what would it be? Like one element, what would you change?
So I've seen two types of distance raves. The first one is the sit down, and the other one is like where the people are standing in the groups of six, you know, like the pens, like little separate VIPs. Yeah. And I actually feel like that secondary one is not allowed. Like I think some of that got shut down, but obviously I'd much prefer that because people are standing up. But I feel like maybe some sort of stand up in. Sounds ridiculous, but in like boxes or something, you know.
Yeah.
Like that.
No, I can definitely see it. I can definitely see it
at the moment. Yeah, because the sitting down is just kind of goes against what raving is, you know. At the end of the day.
When you were playing that dance, then, like, how did you find it almost off-putting that you weren't necessarily getting that kind of jump around reaction? Which obviously, watching the videos of the shows you play, you're probably quite used to seeing people kind of going crazy in the front row. Right? Was it off-putting?
It was a bit, but I think as the night went, I think more than anything, it was just nice to be back in that environment, and like a lot of people I know came down. So more than anything, that was just nice. And I think I was obviously getting gassed off that, and I was also a bit wavy as well. So it didn't really affect me too much. I mean, it's funny because I'd spent a lot of time planning my set and like downloading like garage tunes and stuff, you know, because I was like, right, sit down. So I'm just going to be a bit calmer. So I had 2 1-hour sets with a break in the middle. And I started off in the first set playing garage. Halfway through, I made it a little bit heavier. Then I went off and I got pretty steaming in between. Then I came back and I was like, you know what? They like the heavy stuff. They've been missing it. So in the end, I just went really heavy, and like everyone was like going for it to you know, to some extent. And I saw this video from one in London on the weekend, socially distanced one, and this girl was like literally doing the most while still sitting down. She was like fucking like she was just like she was glued to the seat. And I think that just sums up this year, to be honest.
When those dances come back, I think people are going to be so happy to be back in the environment. We're going to see such a crazy run of raves when they're back in place. I mean, you must be buzzing for that sort of return. That return.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what you got to try and focus on, even if it's hard to see. You know, I know a lot of big promoters around the UK have just got all these shows lined up. They're just sort of waiting for the green light, you know. And then I feel like the boom in that is going to really help the economy as well. You know, like I predict that people are going to want to go out. You know, so I mean, that hopefully then that'll be a good 2021 for the music industry. A few venues did get some grants the other day, but sadly a lot of them didn't, which was a bit odd. But we just really got to hope for the best right now, and like you said, keep thinking about that first moment back.
The thing is, I can already imagine it, like the smoke's going off. If people are going to turn up early.
Yeah, that'll be good. I might have to start playing 10 till 11. Literally on the first song, before I play my first song back at the first one, I might just be like, right, where were we then?
Well, you know what, man? I'm looking forward to seeing it, and obviously, I hope everything's staying well on your end. Thanks for jumping on the line with me today.
Hopefully, I'll see you in Concord 2 backstage soon.
Hopefully, man. Right, we'll catch up in a bit then, dude. Peace.
Yeah. All right, safe, brother. Bye.
What's happening, people? It's KXVU here. We're midway through the documentary now. First of all, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to everyone who has been watching, everyone who has donated footage or content or interview time to make putting this together. It's been a very eye-opening experience. The thing for me that's really kind of blown me away more than anything else is the amount of difficulty that people have kind of had to go through to get these events up and running, getting the procedures in place, making sure all the staff are aware of what they're supposed to be doing. Loads of little things, which has been very, very eye-opening from primarily a punter's perspective of nightlife these days. So I want to send a massive shout out to everyone involved in all the effort they've been putting in. And as well as that, obviously, we are going to carry on with some more interview content. So what we're going to jump into next is a chat with a very good friend of mine, a man like Bush Baby, who stopped by the Trickstar radio studio, recorded it today. So he stopped by today on the day of recording for a bit of a chat about how the socially distanced raving and in general COVID-19's effect on nightlife has affected him personally, talking a lot about inspiration and of course a little bit about the financial side as well. So we're going to get into that now. I mean, how has the whole thing of not being able to play shows in the first place affected you?
Obviously the first reason I would say is probably financially. It's been very hard, as it has for everyone in the lockdown, you know, not just artists but everyone on the entire planet, to be honest. Secondly, inspiration wise, obviously it's a completely different vibe now. We're not really making songs for the rave, or if we are, we're thinking about next year, and it's difficult to get that inspiration when you're not in clubs every weekend and you're not around people dancing that are vibing to your tunes. So I would say that's probably the main thing, is the inspiration is a bit dry at the moment.
I mean, that is quite an interesting kind of point to take on it. Obviously, it's dance music at the end of the day. So when you aren't able to get up and dance to it, it's difficult to kind of gauge like what something should sound like or how it's going to affect people. I mean, you've played one of the socially distanced raves down at the Volks. What was your experience of it, kind of going into it for the first time?
Okay, yeah, it was a bit strange at first. Before I got there, I was a little bit worried because I wasn't sure how it was going to play out. I couldn't really picture it in my head. Luckily, it was in my hometown, so I did have a big group of friends there. It was like just like a pre-drinks almost, you know, because it closed early as well. But it was fun. When I was playing, I'm a bit stiff when I play anyway. I'm not overly sort of interacting. I do a bit, but so it felt like I was almost playing on radio, you know. That's kind of how I had to picture it, and but it was a nice vibe. It was a good vibe, but obviously it's not the same.
I mean, an interesting thing you've said there is obviously it's like playing on radio because there's not that many people there. It's almost like quite a closed environment by what I've seen from the videos. Kind of with that then, when you were there, obviously prior to it, you were saying you were kind of quite worried about how you were going to approach it. And obviously when you were there, did you find yourself kind of changing the plan depending on what people were doing?
I'm going to say no, because I just tend to play what I want to play anyway. I did tend to play a slightly more houseier set than I might have done usually. And as I said, it was like a group of friends there, and it was quite an intimate venue anyway. So there was a vibe there.
So again, with that then, having played one, is it something you can see yourself doing again within the next few sort of weeks, months, if one pops up?
I'd definitely do it if the right one arose. You know, I'd do it. I've seen a lot of events they've been putting on where they have like sort of big festival stages, but everyone has their own sort of like little booth, and there's like 400 people, but they're all separate. So that would be quite fun if you could get like a group of 6 at max of you, all in your own sort of like walled off, fenced off area, and everyone can still see each other, and they can still sort of like be like, oh, you're right, and all that, but everyone's kind of contained, so I'd do it if it was like that. Yeah, definitely.
Having played one of these shows in Brighton, like, what was the one thing you kind of thought, you know what, if we could change that, it would improve everything significantly? And don't just say turn it back to how it was. I mean, like, in regards to like one thing you could like tweak that may kind of bend the rules a little bit, but something if you were to kind of go, if we could just change that bit, that would make a huge difference.
I think I would, following on from what I said earlier, I think I would create these little groups of 6 maximum where they're fenced off, they've got their own booth. You book your tickets all together, so 6 of you mates together, and they put you in your own section, and you're spaced out from each other, but you're in your maximum group of 6. Everyone leaves separately, or they let them in separately. Socially distance queue, and then socially distance leaving. Right, you go, now you go. I think that would sort of, rather than having everyone just like spread out randomly, it would be nice if it was a bit more, everyone had their own space, because people do want to stand up and dance and stuff. That was the thing with Volks, was it was nice, but you couldn't stand up because they didn't want people mingling, obviously, for good reason. But it'd be nice if people could stand up with their mates and sort of like dance, but in their own sort of like little groups,
At this point, the most interesting thing for me, after speaking to all of these different DJs and producers about the shows they were playing, was the sheer amount of shows that had been taking place despite the restrictions that were in place, and the amount of event organisers that were managing to find ways of still getting raves up and running while sticking to the guidelines, which seemed to me to be constantly fluctuating and changing, making it almost impossible to predict for the future. So at this point, I was getting very, very curious as to how it was being done. So I decided to reach out to a number of different promoters and events companies around the country, eventually landing 3 of the most important in my eyes, especially in regards to bass music and underground dance music events. We jumped into numerous different interviews and Zoom calls to find out exactly what had been going down in different areas of the country, including Bristol, Leicester, and of course my hometown of Brighton. You've put on a socially distanced dance quite recently in one of the more sort of popular venues around the country, one of the more established venues around the country. Just on a kind of basic level, how much additional work as a promoter and a programmer went into putting together a night like this, essentially?
I think first off is, in terms of selling the tickets for the events, you have to be so much more careful in terms of capacity, because you can't, say if the clubs were open as normal and you could dance without social distance, you could be like, okay, I've sold maybe 10 extra tickets, that's fine, we can just stick them in a corner somewhere, everyone can carry on. But if I sell 2 tables over, there's two groups of people who are going to turn to this venue and be like, hang on, I haven't got a table, I now can't come into that dance. So the first thing is, you really have to be careful with your capacity, because it's just ultimately so much more important. The safety procedures that you have to go through, there's so many hoops that you have to jump through in terms of environmental health, licensing, the police, local government. You have to be constantly on the ball with them, talking to them. And obviously in terms of when the 85 decibel limit came in, we had to then straight away put a multi-channel limiter onto the sound system, which is obviously peak in the first place, because it was an amazing experience beforehand in terms of being able to push the sound a little bit, and you could really start to feel music again, which is obviously so important, not just for me as a person, but I think for everybody who's been missing that over the past 7 months, being able to feel the bass in your chest, even if it's not to the same level. So, you have to then be really, really tight on your noise. You have to go around and do limiter readings. You have to be really careful in terms of queuing, because now you have to have your mask on when you're queuing. You have to socially distance in the queue. You have to get temperature scanned. You have to sanitize your hands. You have to get your ticket scanned. Then you have to have someone take you to your table. Then you explain the rules. Then you have to be like, okay, this is the toilet. You've got to go at a certain time for the toilet so you can queue up safely. You can only order drinks via QR code to the table. There's so much more work that goes into it. I love every second of it, because it means that I can continue to do what I love, and it means I can continue to provide parties for people that I love. But the amount of extra work that goes into this for no financial benefit at all. In fact, it's probably a financial decline. If you look at it on paper, it doesn't make any sense as to why I'm doing it. But I think I would much rather be doing this and having some form of escapism and hedonism for people, rather than be sat at home twiddling my thumbs and waiting for things to happen again. I'm just glad. I'm very lucky to be able to get back out there and doing it.
100%, man. And I've got to say, it's definitely a hats off situation, bro, because when we see the amount of work that is going into these dances, and when we see the amount, not even necessarily red tape, but the amount of kind of safety measures that have to be in place just to get one off the ground, that's before you get into the sort of day-to-day of actually selling an event, which is almost like, it's almost being forgotten that that's an entire process on its own.
Absolutely.
I mean, with that then, obviously, with the sort of situation you're in now, with the sort of new limitations have come in, like how has that affected, for instance, bookings and things like that? Like, is there now a limit on who you can kind of get involved? Are you like swerving away from certain genres? Like, how is it working? It must be a minefield.
So I think for the first kind of like 2 months, from July to kind of September time, we were like, okay, we're really being careful. We're not going to promote certain types of, say, like the heavier styles of drum and bass. We were only letting people play liquid drum and bass in the venue. And that's because what we found, unfortunately, that's the music I love the most. But unfortunately, what it was that when you played the heavier styles of drum and bass, people were less likely to socially distance. That was we literally experimented with it. It didn't work for us, unfortunately. You know, even like the bass line, things like that, you just couldn't get away with doing it because people just wouldn't respect the rules. So we drew it back. But then I think slowly, as people came to recognize that this is now the new normal, you can start playing with like that. Like we're programming as if we were a club now, and it's brilliant because the artists are more than up for it. There's no real restriction on who you can book. I think firstly because everyone just wants to get back to work, and everyone's just happy to take a booking. So that makes it a lot easier, and everyone's really respectful of the rules. Like all the headliners, like SKEPSIS, we had Voltage, Manu Leng, Eats Everything, Scream, Dusky, everyone like that. They've been really, really well behaved. They've been completely respectful of the rules, and that helps a lot in terms of, you know, if you say, okay, you can't play a sing-along tune because it's now against the guidelines to play sing-along music, they'll be like, okay, that's fine, I'm not going to bother doing it. You know, I just want this to go well. I want to get paid. And I want to create a safe, enjoyable experience for everyone. I think at first, you know, we were treading carefully, but now we're like, okay, this is what the people want. This is what we really want to do. And everyone's willing to work and respect within the rules because they realise that if they don't respect the rules, firstly, they're going to get banned from these venues and not have anywhere to go. And secondly, they're probably, you know, they're risking the venue's license in the first place. And that's the most important thing. Everyone, I think there's definitely a bigger sense of unity and togetherness and respect of the rules finally. Not finally, you know, I don't really care if people didn't respect the rules before because everyone's just having a good time. But now in the time, you know, in this time of year where it's so important for us to try and keep our license, everyone's been really, really well behaved, and it's good. It's brilliant to see. It's really, really good to see.
Obviously, being someone who's been putting events on for a number of years, successful events, like a range of different sort of scales of events as well. How has obviously this socially distanced rave situation kind of how's it affected you directly in regards to putting shows on?
Well, we haven't put a show on yet, so we haven't done one show at all. I think more so like we don't really have the capacity to do so in terms of the space. Outdoor spaces, there's maybe like one in Leicester at the moment, but it's quite small. So obviously the kind of shows that we put on, they can go all the way up to like 2,300 pre-COVID. But right now, what we're looking at a few different options, and one of the reasons why I was late to the call today, in fact, was just I was looking to get a license accepted for an outdoor space. So hopefully, like everything's looking okay, and it's looking like that is going ahead. So fingers crossed, like touch wood that nothing goes wrong with it, and we're able to start doing socially distanced events.
When the sort of lockdown situation came in and the clubs were all closing, it must have hit you hard in regards to shows you already had lined up.
Yeah, definitely. So we had one already sold out. That was like towards the end of March. Literally, I think we went on lockdown a week before the event. We also had our summer shows all lined up, set to be our biggest ever ones. We had all our freshers lined up and all the rest of it. So with the size of the shows that we'd have to put on, we do book well far in advance. So yeah, it's just kind of meant that we're just trying to be reactive to the situation rather than be proactive for how we normally were, because you don't really know what's going on and different rules come into play. And even still now, like I couldn't say when events are going to come back in the same way again. So I think, I'd probably say like we're just trying to be reactive to the situation. I think that's the best thing that you can do right now. rather than trying to plan an events for like even say March, April time. I think it's wishful thinking.
You've kind of spoken a little bit about try and find a space with that you can use for an outdoor sort of socially distanced rave, obviously, and finding the right licensing for that. Is that something you've kind of had in the works for a while, or is that something that's just kind of appeared as an opportunity?
No, I've been toying around with it. I had the opportunity a fair few months ago, but I probably haven't been in a good place. Like I've had to move back to my mum's house. So it's dealing with all that kind of stress. Getting the bar back open, that's been quite stressful. So I've just not had the time to kind of implement it straight away from a get-go, maybe a few months ago when I could have. So now I'm a bit settled now at my mother's house. Like I'm a bit more free to kind of explore the avenue, which I'm hoping to roll out over the course of the next 4 weeks. Hoping that there's not another lockdown. You again, like it's just kind of, you've got to be reactive to the situation, of course.
With obviously seeing everything that's going on, it must have really, really affected that supercharged kind of lineup. I'm assuming you had things booked in all the way through.
Yeah, so we had a full schedule. Near enough all the way through 2020, we were planning for Q4, had some shows booked in. And obviously that's just been thrown into complete disarray. Our calendar is still a little bit all over the place, purely based off the fact we don't know when the show's going to be starting up again. And without knowing that, it is a little bit guesswork. So there's sort of procedures and measures you can put in place to sort of try and combat that. But it is guesswork, in all honesty.
Definitely, man. I mean, obviously, with a company the size of Supercharged, with the size of events you guys put on, I'm assuming to an extent the sort of socially distanced rave scenario isn't really. I'm assuming there's certain situations it's not really applicable to the sort of size of a venue you do.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, we're very artist led on all our shows. So if we book a good artist or a popular artist, we'll have a busy show. Obviously, these artists cost quite a bit of money. The socially distant shows, while they do offer some benefits in terms of it does keep venue staff in a job, it keeps some of our staff in a job. You know, you've got some freelance staff, but as an organizer, you're not really making anything if you do them. Saying all of that, we are going to probably look at starting up some social distance shows. There's a few artists who just want to work and want to be back out and playing gigs and stuff. You know, we all miss it. I haven't really been in a nightclub for 6, 7, 8 months.
That's crazy.
So I'm definitely missing it. So there's a little bit of excitement on that behalf. We know they're not going to be the same. It's definitely not going to be the same. It's you know, the whole experience sort of does concern me a little bit. You know, from a customer point of view, it's not going to be as great. Ticket prices are probably going to be very similar to what they were normally, and that's just because we have to cover costs. Otherwise, we would be losing a lot of money.
Of course. I mean, kind of with that then, obviously you've mentioned like the potential of starting a few of these events up. I mean, I'm assuming with that you've kind of looked at like the red tape you kind of have to work with. Like, what have been the things that have really kind of stuck out to you that you have to work with?
The noise limit is a big one. You know, we can the 10 p.m. close. While there's a lot that can be said on it, you can still have a daytime party, daytime rave, but with the sound limit at, I think, at 85 decibels, it's difficult. The venue has to have a very good sound system, like a delay stack across the whole venue for everyone to be able to hear it. And even then, it's very hard to recreate the atmosphere. You know, the reason people go out clubbing and listen to their favourite songs in a nightclub as opposed to on the radio, that you are losing that a little bit. But I mean, I popped my head into someone else's event, and there was a little bit of an atmosphere. It did remind me a little bit of being out clubbing, and I would say it's better than nothing. You know, something is better than nothing, and if it generates a little bit of money for everyone, and it gets people back out and not sitting at home, then it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Definitely, man. I completely agree. And I think having been to a couple of them myself, obviously there's been different things I've kind of noticed about them. Obviously the noise being one, the fact you can't obviously go to the bar to get your own drinks. Like there's loads of little things like that are kind of involved with it. The thing I found kind of most interesting, more than anything else, is from a consumer's perspective, being able to talk to people whilst tunes are playing and not shouting each other's ears off. Like, with yourself, if there was one thing you're kind of looking forward to about them, specifically, what would it be?
Well, to be honest, it's been able to engage with our customers. We can go down, exactly like you say, we can go round. We'll obviously be observing all socially distanced measures. We'll have our masks and stuff, but we can actually have a conversation now, and we can get some genuine feedback at the show, which it wasn't really previously obtainable. It'd be a bit strange if we sent reps in to sort of break people up from dancing and raving, stuff like that. So it's definitely more of a social experience within your sort of bubble of six. And the whole food and drink element, which we will probably introduce even for the supercharged ones, I think helps sort of create that. And it's a different vibe. It's not the same. If you think you're going to come and you're going to have a rave and, be dancing, sweating and bumping into people, it's not going to be that. But if you do actually genuinely like the music, you can argue, you can hear it still, and you can talk to your friends, you can discuss it. It's a different experience.
Entirely.
And one, as an organizer, we're going to use it to as much as we can. It's a good opportunity for us. Definitely,
man. I completely agree. And I think, obviously, across lots of different ways, the thing that lockdown has kind of done, obviously, there's been so much, so many bad things that have happened off the back of it, obviously, in regards to economic, in regards to nightlife. There's so many things. But alongside that, there are also, it's almost like the idea of diamonds are created under pressure. This is when creative people and people in these sort of industries do tend to go, okay, what can we do? What can we do new? What can we do different? Have you found that to be kind of part of the thinking process?
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's more so than ever now. There's the togetherness feel. We're looking at, I look constantly, every single day, I'm looking to see what people are doing, if there's anything innovative, ways that people are making it work. Definitely, I'm sharing a lot more ideas. I'm discussing and talking to more promoters and organisers than I've ever done so before. We're all in the same boat, and any rivalry or anything like that previously existed, it just doesn't now. I think a spotlight's been shone on to how pathetic it is, and sort of how anti-progressive it is. If we all work together and all plan together, I mean, I'm happy sharing all of my ideas currently, and other people seem to be as well. We're all sort of trying to go in the same direction. If there's opportunities to team up within the city, outside of the city, then I'm all ears. It's definitely repositioned a lot of things for us, a lot of our thoughts and a lot of our plans going forward. I think we'll be a lot more receptive to just working with good people. Everyone's been affected badly, and it's an opportunity for us to come together and try and make something. Like you say, it's not amazing, but what we can do is be creative, and who knows where it could end up. It could be 3-4 months' time. We could be having some wicked socially distanced raves, which we weren't even dreaming of now.
So following on from the conversations we'd been having with numerous DJs in the preparation for this documentary, it was becoming very clear that the majority of DJs were very happy to be back in a dance, regardless of the restrictions, as it was giving them the opportunity to take in that experience, maybe from a slightly different perspective, but still take in the preparation and the performance elements of what being a DJ in today's underground world is. However, I then sat back and thought, what about the MCs? There hadn't been a point so far in which we'd even spoken about the MCs and how their role had completely changed in these dances. The point of an MC at the end of the day is to control a crowd, to bring that energy when it's needed and turn down the pressure when it's the right thing to do. So I jumped onto the phone with man like FORCA to get his perspective on what's been going down, having played a couple of socially distanced dances himself as an MC and frontman. Obviously, yourself, you played one of these shows quite recently. Do you want to talk us through how it was as an experience? Because obviously, as an MC, it's going to be quite an unusual thing, I would presume, to kind of speak to a crowd that are sat down.
Yeah, it's a bit crazy. I've done a couple now, but I'd say when I did the first one, it was, don't get it twisted, it was good to just see faces again. It was sick. Obviously, we've been on lockdown for ages, and we didn't know when we're going to see events, but it's only when it started to you get to the front and everyone's trying to get up and trying to use their natural instincts and dance, and people are getting told off and stuff. So even before I've even got onto a microphone, I'm thinking this is going to be a problem. They're basically stopping people from having natural reactions. For me, it's you might as well tell someone not to cough or sneeze.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? especially if you come into a rave. So it's very weird. But when I got onto the microphone, there was moments where I'd actually have to tell people to like calm down and stuff, which is mad. And all they're doing,
which is really, really mad.
And all they're doing is this, because like it's not. I don't want to adapt to it. It's weird. I don't want to get used to it. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Really
No,
don't.
no, I can completely understand it, man. Because I was just thinking about it. Like when we set this one up, it must be the most bizarre, almost against instinct thing for you to kind of not be telling people to move around.
The move, bro. It's like it's complete opposite now to when we were doing like festivals and stuff last year. It's just, bro. It's a bit crazy. And like I say, I feel bad because I'm stood up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Of course.
I'm stood up, and I'm telling people to sit down. I feel bad, bro, because half of these people are used to like. I don't even mind getting in the crowd sometimes when I'm hosting or doing a performance, but it really is like, it's weird, bro. It's not the same. It's not, the vibe. Don't get me wrong. The vibe was there when we played and stuff, but again, it wasn't loud.
Yeah.
Usually, I get to feel it in my feet, in my chest. You get me? I feel like it was. At certain moments where I went round to the monitors to hear certain tunes that I'd not heard on the rig, it was louder on the monitor for me than being on the rig.
That's insane, man. What's going through your mind when you're in that situation?
Oh, when I'm in the situation, it's weird just adapting. I'm telling you, it's harder now than it was before. Like I said, everyone's used to naturally dancing, naturally doing stuff. But then, even like when certain tunes came on of mine, I'm thinking, oh, should I even play my own tune? Because I know what this usually did before lockdown. Like, shall I play now? I don't think so. Or shall I play that new Deadbeat banger? Because I remember, all right, I'll be honest, 5 people got kicked out of my last set just for standing up. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's such a crazy perspective, because obviously in what a dance normally is a dance at the end of the day. A dance is literally designed to get people moving, to get people jumping, to get people up and out, up for the evening more than anything else. So it must almost feel counterintuitive to an extent.
Bro, so at the end of it, when I'm seeing people getting kicked out because they've paid money at the end of the day, man, I feel like, oh my gosh, should I even do my job? But I can't stop doing what I'm doing. But then it's just a weird one, bro. Like I said, I will never stop playing it for as long as I can still play little shows and do my little bit. I won't stop, but I don't want to get used to how it is.
Yeah, of course.
But
of course.
People have desire to dance, and yeah, it's weird, bro. It's weird. It's a blessing to still be able to do the odd little thing. But like I said, it's like I can't go in. I can go entirely in, but I can't go in, fam. You know what?
An interesting point here, obviously, is when I'm talking to DJs about this, I've been talking a lot about their selection and what they've decided to play. So a lot of people have been saying, you know what, normally I'd have gone quite hard. I would have been playing sort of more heavy, like sort of heavyweight bass sort of sounds, and instead I'm playing garage and more sort of
toning it down.
Yeah, toning it down a little bit. Like, how does that situation occur for yourself? Because obviously you're an MC, you're a hype man, you're someone that brings the energy. Like, what do you have to do differently in that sort of situation?
So I played a set with Sean Dean not so long ago, and
that was part of his album sort of launch stuff, I'm presuming.
No, it was a booking. Wool Club booked. It was a Wool Club booking that me and him actually got as after the release of our tune.
Okay.
It wasn't the album launch thing, but I've played with him a few times. I've played with him in Huddersfield. I've played with him in Sheffield, and like Bass Fest and stuff before. And I know what we usually do. It's crazy. Probably start a little bit, whatever, and then go really hard. And he might even drop like grime instrumentals for me, or just let me know, and we'll do a quick challenge, for example. You get what I'm saying?
Like the synergy of a DJ MC relationship, essentially.
But the last one, like, I was kind of more saying to him, you know what, right? Let's kind of start with like a jacking vibe, bring it to like garage, and then tail end go to baseline. But the only time I actually, because I'd have given them bars more time with Sean, innit?
Yeah.
The only time I actually performed in that set was our tune Record Box. I didn't necessarily want to go in, like I said. I was just trying to be the host with the most and try and keep a vibe. But contain it. I'm having to be that guy because there wasn't another MC the whole night, so I had to keep on telling people, you know what, security getting on to us. You need to just chill a little bit.
That must be heartbreaking, bro. That
Bro,
must be heartbreaking.
It's horrible, man. It's horrible. But like I said, I try and utilize being one of the only people to stand up and actually go and talk to every table. I know we've got to do social distancing, but I try and engage with everybody if I am there as much as possible, saying it's not the same, but thank you for coming. It's still so way important, because without you guys, we couldn't be doing it. So we couldn't play to like empty things. And luckily, the things I've been playing have been near enough sold out every time. And it's weird, bro, because it's like 97 people now.
Yeah.
And that's sold out. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's weird,
man.
Bro. Having to have a part 1 and then like a part 2 just to get the same numbers in. I feel for promoters, I feel for DJs, and everybody who's having to adapt right now, man.
Yeah, as you said,
more power to everybody that is adapting with it and doing what they can do, because they're not making it easy for us at all.
No,
they're not
entirely.
So big up, more power to all the promoters, every other artist that's got involved in doing something over this weird time, man. And big up the ravers, more importantly, bro, because if you don't buy them tables, we'd have no one to perform to. The soundman won't get paid. The caterers don't get paid. The stewards don't get paid. So big up the ravers more than everybody as well.
Now, obviously, when it comes to MCs and rappers, it's not just live club nights that get taken into play with this. There are numerous different avenues of performance around the UK, one of them, of course, being battle rap. As someone who's been involved with the battle rap scene in the UK for numerous years, to me, I found the idea of having a battle rap event with a socially distanced crowd quite alien as a concept. The whole idea for me with battle rap, especially in the UK, is the idea of the crowd being there, their ability to get involved with the battle and verify what people are saying with their live reactions. So, I decided to jump onto a call with Rowan Faith, also known as one of the founders of Don't Flop, the original UK Battle Rap League. We sat down to discuss how socially distanced events affect the world of battle rap and how important those crowds actually are to both the experience of the performer and, of course, the crowd involved.
I think when we started out, there was no crowds at all, so there was no expectations. But as we grew, like the numbers online grew, of course, like more and more people wanted to come to events, and it became much more important to write bars that connected with the crowd. And I think definitely over the last maybe like 10 years, maybe 5 to 10 years, it's become like really the thing is, it's not about like whatever like the cool thing is at the time. It's not cool anymore to get the props online. Like that's something that should come with it and rappers go for. But what's really become cool, and it seems to be more and more cool as time goes on, is getting that reaction in a room. Because if a battler loses online, they could lose 99% to 1% on a poll online. They'll still jump up and say, "You weren't there in the room though. The crowd were feeling me. My bars were for the crowd, not for, you know." So it's so important to the rappers. It's so important, and obviously from an events promotion point of view, when your main source of income is the ticket money, it goes without saying.
From like a fan's perspective here, that sort of thing of being involved in the sort of the raucousness of obviously everyone reacting at the same time. It's literally like football when your team scores. You know, there's very little things on the planet that are like that you can be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, I only actually found this video recently, but we've done a video that's just best reactions. Now that you're not going to get best reactions from a Zoom rap battle. I mean,
of course.
Unfortunately, that's just not going to happen. Like, but we because the crowds, and not just to blow my own trumpet, but you know, Don't Flop crowds are notoriously engaged and energetic. So it's like we've done a video that's just literally look at all these times our crowd have just gone absolutely wild. And it's been amazing. And it's like an ego massage for us, basically showing to the world, look, you might be getting 10 times more the views, but your crowds are not what we've got. So again, you know, we're lacking from that. We're lacking from knowing we can turn up to a venue and knowing that the crowd is going to understand every single bar and get involved. Because, you know, dropping videos online is great, and I genuinely do enjoy it. But it's like seeing the response written is not the same as hearing it in the room and like the echo. You've been to a million Don't Flop events. You know what it's like when a line lands. As a battler, you know what it's like, and as a fan, you know what it's like. when a line hits and it really, really hits, you can literally feel the walls vibrating and sweat dripping down from the ceiling.
Yeah, it does kind of come back again to that idea of tribalism, that idea of being a part of something, being in a part of a moment with other people. It's a very kind of it's a very kind of human specific kind of experience that you can't really explain unless it's kind of happened.
I think with the tribalism thing as well, something that has often happened with me is if I ever meet someone that's wearing Don't Flop merch, the first question is, oh, which event did you buy it? Because most people will get it from one of us at the event, because it's the same thing. They want that experience of buying it, putting it on and wearing it for the rest of the day. So it's an easy conversation topic, and it's so interesting when people say, oh, do you know what, bro? I was actually at an event 4 years ago. Oh my God, really? Which one? Again, it's not the same now if it's like, oh yeah, I bought this hat from your website. Thanks a lot. It's like, oh, okay, great. It's not really, it's not that same. It's like, it's nice to know, oh, you came to that event. Which battle did you enjoy? Oh, okay, brilliant. Like, it's that level of, I guess, like closeness you feel as a fan and as a promoter that it's just cannot be replicated without
entirely. I mean, obviously you put on an event actually the weekend we've recorded this, and we're recording this literally the day after the event took place. Now kind of putting a socially distanced event together is something we've spoken about a lot on this documentary with different promoters, different DJs, and obviously with battle rap events there's a very kind of specific sort of feel, a very sort of specific look to how they need to be, the like shape of the room, all of these things that have to kind of be put into play. How was your experience of setting one up, like following restrictions and things like that?
Well, we've been as patient as we can be. I mean, when it was a full-on national lockdown, I wasn't going to be that dickhead that was like, oh, let's find a loophole. It's just like, it is what it is, But as time has gone on, I mean, with the 30-person thing, to be honest, being able to throw a 30-person event would have been really simple to set up, and they would have actually looked pretty similar to a normal event. There wouldn't have been much of a difference. But it's with this 6 people thing, obviously we can do it as a live performance, but then it means you have to find the right venue that believes in what you're doing. Now, venues that are doing socially distanced events are scarce, and I'm talking from personal experience. They're not always ones that, of their very limited dates available, are going to say, I'm going to give one to a battle rap YouTube channel. That's just, it's a shame, but that's a fact. So finding a venue that wants to do it, to be honest, almost went out the window. So I just got very, very lucky that someone we've worked with before, who runs a rehearsal studio, said, you can basically do it here whenever you want, because as far as like whatever the local rules are don't apply, because it's a working environment. So we can have 6 people in the room that aren't from the same household, because they're all actually working together, because we're working on a shoot as such. So that took a while to put together, but once we had that piece of information that this is how we can do it and do it legally, because my main concern has been, don't do anything that's going to get you in trouble, because it's just not worth the hassle, just for the sake of, oh, I did it. Like, it's not worth it. So yeah, of course. So once we were incredibly lucky, we secured the room for we could do the battles. It was more just, it wasn't even the actual part of setting the card up wasn't that hard, because people have been in lockdown. We're talking 7.5 months now. Most people haven't rapped a single bar to anybody. So when we messaged anybody and said, right, we have this date, this is how it's going to be, there's going to be no crowd. Of course, there was a little bit of like, from everything we just spoke about, oh, really, no crowd, that's a shame. But almost immediately, they were just like, oh my God, I'll come do it. Now, we told them, of course, like, we're not making a penny from this event, so unfortunately we can't pay you. No one had any issues with that at all. But again, I guess this is probably a positive from there being no crowd, because if there was a crowd, that would be a whole different conversation, because someone would be saying, well, I know you're making this level of money from the event, so I need to be paid accordingly. So I guess in that way, it's nice to just chop that part of the negotiations out. That it's just, I'm telling you, if you would like to battle, I would love to host it. But we have to be agreed, this is all we're doing it for the love. There's going to be 6 people in the room. It is what it is, really. And we were luckily, blessed with people that just jumped on it straight away and were like, yeah, where do I sign? I want to do it right now. But then I guess the only thing that I was thinking about this question when I woke up, and it's like, it sounds like an obvious thing to say, but it's like my main thought when I was there was like 2 things. Like, I'm so lucky that we have this link and we can do at least something. And I was trying to think positively, like, this is amazing. Like I can finally host battles again, and this might be the start of something new. But in all honesty, the overriding thought I had was, this would be amazing with a crowd.
Yeah.
That's just like, and that's the truth. I hate to say it, but that is the truth. It was just like, I'm honestly counting my blessings that I've been given the chance to do something instead of nothing for 7 months. But you know, one of the battlers had a crazy performance, like Impact. He went nuts. Like every bar, incredible. It was like watching a main stage Ministry of Sound performance, and it just made me think like, shit, I wish we were on the stage at Ministry of Sound.
Yeah, of course.
The crowd would be going crazy, throwing their water bottles in the air. So that was it. And I think like, yeah, it's just gonna be finding that balance between, you know, finding the people that are happy with the small rooms, but then obviously as these laws change, eventually, as soon as possible, going to have to move it back to a venue because I miss it too much, and so do the MCs. But
so there we have it. That was the final interview of this documentary. I want to send a massive, massive thank you to each and every person who has got involved for interviews and for conversations in general, and everyone who has sent over footage to be used as well. I hope, like me, you guys can take something away from this and look at just how resilient the UK music industry has become despite the challenges that faces it, especially within the nightlife sector. We've all seen there's been very little support in general across the board for nightclubs and venues until it was far too late for some, and hopefully this documentary has been able to highlight a lot of the issues surrounding socially distanced raves for both the promoters, the DJs, the MCs, and everyone else involved. Hopefully you have enjoyed this one, and if you have, please do make sure you are subscribing to the channel. There is loads of content going up daily. I've really enjoyed putting this together. It's the first time I've built a long form project like this, so thank you to each and every one of you for getting involved, and we'll see you next time.